Oh, hey! I didn't see you there. Nice to see you. I'm just enjoying some fresh air. You know, this new job isn't half bad. I get to meet new people, use top-of-the-line equipment, and best of all, I get paid vacation. Screw that! Our competitors may have more than us, but it's good to be back! This is Bunny, and you're watching the grand finale of Personathon.
Alright, I know what you're thinking. Minty, why is this a finale? Wasn't that the Persona 5 review? Well,
Shut the f up!
Yeah, in a way it was. However, I am happy to make this very special episode to really wrap things up once and for all. You see, with the release of Persona 5 Tactica on the way, let's take a look back into one of Atlus's truest attempts into making a fully fleshed out P5 spin-off. And what better way to do it than to bring in a special guest with us. Give it up for our beloved host, Akari Aoi.
Sir, I thought we went by code names. Anyway, to conclude this roller coaster of a series, we decided to bring a review on what might just be one of my favorite games of the Persona series, Persona 5 Strikers. Now, this game... oh dear. Of all the titles we've seen, this will probably be one of the hardest I have to talk about. Not because of how ambitious or grand it was for the series, but rather because of my history with it, and the one it's had with its fans. That said, I am more than happy to say that this game is a game I hold very fondly, and with a lot of praise. And that's what this production is about. You all know the drill, so let's get into its development. Captain?
The year is 2016. Persona 5 just released and all this happened. So immediately after its release, the team set out to make a brand new Persona 5 project. Codenamed P5S, this was going to be a warrior-styled game. Also known as Musu, it's basically a gameplay style where it involves hundreds of enemies on the screen and you have to take them down with various combos. This is a gameplay system heavily utilized by Koei Tecmo and has been used in several titles of theirs and even brought onto other franchises like The Legend of Zelda and Fire Emblem. And that was kind of the goal of this new project. This will be co-developed with Koei Tecmo, and we soon get a teaser for it around 2018, more trailers on 2019, and released on these respective dates. And that's about it, really. However, there's a bit I want to share about from the lead up to its release. You see, around the same time P5S was announced, Joker was revealed to be in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. This led many to believe that we would actually get Persona 5 on the Nintendo Switch. With P5S being announced, many thought the game would actually be ported to the system. Once Strikers got its first official reveal, let's just say this started a downward spiral within the community, and ultimately left a huge amount of hate for the game itself, with tons of Switch fans dislike bombing the trailer and voicing their thoughts on the matter. Before I continue, can I just say that in hindsight, this was a really stupid rumor? Think about it. Persona 5 Royal was releasing in the near future. It was confirmed around the same time as Strikers. Yet there were people saying Persona 5 will be ported to the Switch just because there was a project codenamed P5S? What did this mean? Are you saying that they would suddenly confirm Persona 5 Royal would be on the PS4 and Switch? Or would P5R be on the PS4 while Vanilla was on the Switch? This just doesn't make sense. Back to the main topic, however. So the game got a bit of hate, but fortunately, something happened. The game got a demo. It was Japan only, but that didn't stop us from trying it out. And surprisingly, a lot of people liked it. Even I did. I was one of the few people out there who tried out this demo, and I gotta say, it was very promising. The game was super fun, it was very entertaining, and the music was great. In any case, this actually got us very excited to see what the game had to offer. So we waited, the game released in Japan, but no worries, it'll soon be ported to the West. All we had to do is wait, so we waited, and waited, and waited. When did this game release again? Oh, right. For obvious reasons, this game took almost a full year until its release. Now, Atlus, I understand this was a very hard time for you, but at the very least you could have actually given us some info. This game had a very rocky start, but soon after it started gaining traction and it looked really promising. So why didn't you take the opportunity to communicate at least some statement regarding its development? Anyhow, we did eventually get the game around February of 2021. Fun fact, this was originally called Persona 5 Scramble, but got changed to Strikers in the West. So, how well does it hold up? Only one way to know for sure. Bunny, you're up now.
Now on to story. It's a simple yet very refreshing take. It's almost a full year since the events of Persona 5. Ren, or the protagonist, decides to revisit our friends for summer vacation. But while he's there, a lot of unusual incidents have happened across the nation. This led to the authorities to begin an investigation, speculating that this might be a plan orchestrated by the Phantom Thieves. Even though we haven't heard of them for about a year, whatever the case, one particular officer, Zenkichi Hasegawa, looks for clues to solve the case. You and your friends just enjoy your vacation together, all until we apparently come back to the metaverse. Yeah, so somehow thanks to this new app called Emma, you can access these new areas within the world called jails. So it's up to you, the Phantom Thieves, this new AI girl named Sophia, to figure out who's behind this new phenomenon and save the nation once again. Okay, can I just say, I am absolutely in love with this story. Heck, I might even go as far as to say it's better than 5's. Not Royals, however, keep that in mind. And there's a handful of reasons, really. If you couldn't tell, this game plays out as a true sequel to the original P5. And this is really cool. One thing I love about this is that it leads to many more interactions between characters. Everyone is already well established and know each other, so you really get to see their personalities bounce off each other and all feel like one big team. As soon as I came back to see the Phantom Thieves happy to see me, telling me what they've been doing all this time, it all feels natural and adds a sense of nostalgia. And you get to see more development on how they've grown. Makoto is now in college and can even drive. Futaba is going to school and more outgoing, and Sojiro is more than happy to see you back. Granted, some of the interactions here aren't the deepest, and the cast doesn't really develop too much here, but it'll quickly be apparent that it's intentional, especially once we get to these two. I'll get to them in a moment, however. So what is this jail concept? How's it all working? Well, you see, this Emma app is essentially an AI who can do about anything for you. But after trying to send a friend request to a specific person, it'll send you to said person's jail. As said, jails play out kind of like the same way as palaces did, with the whole symbolism of the ruler's desires manifested into reality in a literal sense. The twist here is that instead of a jail ruler, or should I say, monarch, yes, they actually call them that and I love it. As I was saying, instead of them having a treasure to steal, they have an army of enemies that take the desires of the general public. That's why, as you'll see in Strikers, the people you have to take down have a very large and loyal following. Like Alice Hiragi, who is an influencer, Ango Natsume, a very popular author, and Mariko Hyoto being a politician. Now, how are these people able to have their own jails? Well, they're just as much of a jerk like the people we fought in P5. It's up for debate who are the better antagonists between P5 and P5S, but I feel like Striker's antagonists feel more like actual people, if that makes any sense. We still have Big Bad CEO number 43 with Akira Konoe, the supposed final boss. But I do think some of the characters here feel more realistic, especially with our current times. Alice is no joke someone who has depression and a low self-esteem, so she ends up beating people physically to feel better about herself, as if she's better than them. This is very real behavior and consequence when someone experiences fame at the same pace that Alice had. It's something many don't like to believe, but it's just the truth, and this fits very well into our everyday culture and how we see these kinds of people. And that's only the first villain of this game. While Maruki will always be my absolute favorite antagonist in the whole series, I've got to give props to Atlus for making such unique directions with this title. That's actually one of my biggest praises towards Strikers, really. But enough about the villains. For now, at least. Let's get into the best additions to Persona 5's narrative, Sophia and Zenkichi. Sophia, as she states, is humanity's companion. She's also an AI. However, unlike Emma, she feels ironically more human. She has her own feelings, she tries to learn about humans, and is immediately established to be a Persona user. Her arc is a very simple one. Machine or AI wanting to become more human. I guess from Persona 3 kind of tried doing something similar, but there's massive differences in why I think Sophia is much better developed than Aigis. You see, Sophia's development isn't focused on just herself as a social link. Rather, it is a focal point to the main story. Understanding Sophia's past is fundamentally tied to everything that happens in Strikers. That alone easily makes her character much stronger and her development much more satisfying. So, to put it simply, Sophia was an AI created by Kuon Ishinoze, the same person who created Emma. She created Sophia so she could help people, but after not resulting in how she wanted, she abandoned Sophia and developed Emma instead. Which later, Emma was sold to Akira Konoe, the CEO of an IT company called Medice, and soon to be our main villain. Throughout the story, however, we get to see not only Sophia grow as more than just an AI, but eventually comes to terms with Ichinose, having the two become close companions. This is such a beautiful story, and you honestly feel for Sophia. There's a scene I skipped over, but basically Ichinose tries to take control of Sophia to hurt the Phantom Thieves, but she refuses, and it leads her to awaken her persona. Odd thing to happen, since she kind of already could control it, but hey, Sumire was able to summon hers even though she already did. What can you do? Now on to Zenkichi. Best character in the entire series! Zenkichi is probably one of the most unique and most complex characters I've gotten to see in a Persona game. Right at the beginning, you get to see that his main goal is to look into the investigation I mentioned earlier. And he does commit to it. He meets who he thinks are the Phantom Thieves and goes along with them to see what they do. He is a police officer, he's not there to mess around, but over time he slowly but surely becomes more involved with the cast, actually believing them in this whole Monarch in jail debacle, getting to know Sophia, and, major spoilers, becoming a Phantom Thief. Oh my gosh, this game is so awesome! And I just want to say, Zenkichi has my favorite Phantom Thief attire. He just looks so cool and is codenamed Wolf, a fun reference when looking at where and who he summons his persona against. Oh, and I might as well also mention how amazing these jails are designed. Most of them take inspiration from traditional fairy tales like Alice in Wonderland, The Ice Queen, Little Red Riding Hood. I don't know what it is, but there's something amazing about how the theming, the subtle references, combined with the fact these rulers are called monarchs, they're straight up taking notes from the Gentleman Thief and making it in your face, and it's just so exciting. Alright, I'm just saying it. I prefer Strikers' jails and symbolism over most palaces and theming done in Persona 5. Fight me, Twitter! I mean, X. I guess I should calm down a bit. Sorry, sir. As I was saying, he grows to eventually love being with the Phantom Thieves and fights along in the remaining bosses. No joke, he goes as far as to sacrifice his own job just to help them out from being captured by the authorities. This is just so cool. He's also really likable. Despite being presented as a bit of a threat at first, he's really funny and just an adult trying to understand the people he's with. He's like a typical dad trying to get along with his son, but translate that into a group of young adults. And don't get me started with the side arc he has with his daughter. So the story between him and her is that Zenkichi basically tries to solve the case to find out who killed his wife, and the interactions we get between the two are really sweet. Zenkichi's daughter is no joke a live streamer who talks about the Phantom Thieves, and heck, we even fight her as her shadow self. We even get to see... Wait, is that Shadow Joker? No way. This game is absolutely amazing! Oh wait, we just have a very small boss fight. Nah, not everything's as perfect as they say. Anyway, we do get to see a lot of cute development between these two, and while it's very similar to the chemistry between Dojima and Nakano from Persona 4, the whole gimmick of Zenkichi's daughter being a fan of us just really felt cute and different enough to feel unique. Now, I know I've been constantly singing praises this whole time, but I promise I do actually have some negatives. My biggest issue just comes down to Konoe and the final boss. For context, Konoe is the CEO of Medice and has that evil CEO trope, which many of you can guess. I despise it. And Konoe is not an exception to the rule. He's fine, I guess. I like the boss fight and the references to him presenting as if he were Steve Jobs. That was kind of neat. But as a whole, he was one of the weakest villains. Oh, and the final boss. You can already guess what happens. We beat Konoe, but then we have to yet again fight a gigantic god who wants to rule over humanity. You know, this was just really stupid. After playing all these games and doing the same ending, I personally wanted Strikers to at least strive to do something new. Maybe Konoe could, I don't know, be the god himself, or summon her persona. Think like in the same vein as Maruki. But that's really my only issue with the story. Everything else is everything I could ask for in a Persona 5 title. It takes well-established and fun characters we grew to love while introducing us to brand new ones with a completely new yet familiar conflict. Now, why don't we get on to the gameplay side of things? Alright, so, as we have said many times, Persona 5 Strikers plays very similarly to many of its contemporaries. You run around dungeons, fighting enemies, collect personas to fuse new ones, gather items, and having to balance it all by living as a high school student. However, as you can tell, there have been an abundance of changes, easily making this the most different game we're reviewing on Personathon. So, first things first, this is a Warriors game, meaning the main thing you'll be doing is fighting hundreds of shadows and demons in the map. I just want to start by saying that narratively and stylistically, this makes so much sense. Think about it. By the end of Persona 5, you just defeated an entire god. It only makes sense you become so powerful that you can now deal with massive waves of enemies. And fighting them is so much fun. You get to do various combos with light and heavy attacks, you can use your gun and even use your persona. So how does it all come together? Well, it's quite simple. As mentioned before, you're able to do many combos with the character you use, but on top of that you have this. By pressing on the right shoulder button, you get to pause the scene to summon your persona and use a spell on them. Granted, this will in fact waste SP. However, if you are skilled enough, you can perform these same actions through a combo. This is a really clever way to increase the skill ceiling. While yes, you can summon a persona the simple way and do more damage, but if you want to do a spell without casting SP and chip damage, you should probably learn to do it through its proper combo. You're able to switch between personas through the menu. Fusing them is pretty much the same as it's always been, so that's good to know. And I have to say that while this is a Warriors-styled game, there's a lot of combos you can do. It's nowhere near as complex or as deep like Bayo or Devil May Cry, but with the addition of this persona summoning mechanic, it does add a lot of diversity to the action. And let me just add that depending on the area you're in, you can actually use your surroundings to attack. For example, yeah, you could just fight off these hordes of enemies yourself, but wouldn't it be cool to jump on a car and blow it up, or cut the cords on these platforms to then perform an all-out attack? Well, you're in luck. This mechanic is so much fun, and it just further shows how powerful and skilled the Phantom Thieves have become. Right, about the all-out attacks. I like to think that there's three kinds here. You have the basic one, which is a very small and fast rush towards a group of enemies. Then we have the bigger version of it. This is reserved for mini or main bosses, but it is super stylish and fun to perform once you've weakened a boss enough. And last but not least, the new Showtime attacks. These are your ultimate move, and you can do them after filling this meter. These are just as flashy and exciting as the ones in P5, but it has that little tint of exhilaration added. Everyone in the cast has one, and they're all amazing to look at. Oh, and that reminds me. No joke, just a few hours in, you'll immediately have access to everyone in the Phantom Thieves and Sophia. This only further incentivizes you to experiment and come up with a good team for the missions. Some do have an issue with this, claiming that it makes it very easy to just make a team and stick with them without changing, but I honestly never felt that. Each character had their own unique strengths and weaknesses, not to mention they all use different elements and spells to further make me want to try them. Morgana is more of a healer and a faster kind of character, while Haru is much slower but can pack a punch with her axe. Not to mention how fun it is switching between characters here, and you can easily stick to Joker as your main player, but it's super cool to go from Joker to then Anne to Yusuke and so on. Graphically, this game is absolutely gorgeous. It's so bright and colorful, and the pre-rendered cutscenes feel so cinematic. In terms of the soundtrack, whew, I gotta say, I will take this over Persona 5's OST any day of the week. Seriously, the tracks here make the action so much more exciting. They took various songs from the original game and remixed them to have more of a punk rock feel. Heck, there's original tracks here that I'd kill to have in Persona 5 Royal. My favorite songs have to be the game's version of Last Surprise, Axe to Grind, Daredevil, Counter-Strike, and so many more. If anyone can make music mods for P5R, please just change the OST to Strikers.
Now this is cool and all, but what about outside the combat? Well, when exploring these jails, the game has a massive emphasis on platforming, using the environment to run around, jump on buildings, and even some fun 2D sections. There's a lot of items to collect and countless encounters you can do to grind. And why not get into these jails actually? We mentioned them before, but I cannot get over how clever they designed the jails. Most of them, at least the first three, heavily lean towards a castle setting, but we do get to see other places like a lab and a Japanese garden, and not just aesthetically but also gameplay wise. Now, let's take a look outside these jails. Persona 5 Strikers is overall much more linear. There's no social links, rather a handful of boosts you can upgrade as you progress through the story. Some say this is a major downgrade, but for the kind of game that Strikers is trying to be, I really don't mind it. It makes the pace much faster and more relaxing really. Strikers doesn't really have a calendar system. Okay, well it technically does, but not in the traditional sense. It's very dependent on story progression. On top of that, you can always visit jails right after you defeat the monarch. This is kinda weird narratively, but when you think about it, I can kinda see why they did this. Jails aren't really a palace. It's not a manifestation of a villain's desires. rather the desires of the people manifested to an area. Okay, maybe that sounds a little more confusing, but you get what I mean, they're different. Plus, look on the bright side, you get to fight the bosses again if you want. The bosses themselves are super cool. You have more references to the theming of the jails, and I have to say, hearing Counter-Strike while I was fighting Konoe in his second phase made me feel like such a badass. Especially now with my boy Senkichi. Man, we need more people like him.
And yeah, that's kind of it for the gameplay. It's a very radically different title. It's no longer turn-based, just fun and exciting action as you take down massive waves of shadows. No better way to continue the legacy of the Phantom Thieves.
With all that said, you may think that this game has been off the charts for everyone else as much as it was for us. And surprisingly, it kind of did. Let me explain. So let's start off with the sales. I am happy to say that Strikers managed to sell 1.5 million copies as of June of 2021. Oh wait, what's this? Scratch that, Strikers has sold officially over 2 million copies as of recording this production. The fact that this game started off with one of the worst first impressions to suddenly be one of the most successful entries in the Persona 5 brand is wild to me. Critically, however, it did alright. Many did praise for the story and gameplay. However, as time went on, I've been noticing a few people in the community saying it's not that good. Am I overpraising this game too much? Maybe, but I just can't stop loving this game. I sadly don't think there's ever going to be a remake or definitive version like how they did with Persona 4 Arena, a very similar game in what it tries to do, but we can only wish.
Well, that's actually it. We finished Personathon. It's hard to believe just how far we've come with this series and our productions. Never did I think I would be back here for you all. Doing this series was a very fun experience. I had so much fun having to finally talk about what is a franchise that means a lot to me. If I had to say one last thing before we truly say goodbye, it's thank you. Thank you so much for all your support. Thank you for sticking with us. From when I first became a host to where you see me now. From the bottom of my heart, this is one, if not the most ambitious project I've ever gotten the chance to be in. It may have taken us this long, but it warms my heart having your support. Oh my gosh, I said I wasn't going to do this without crying. Sorry, just got a bit too emotional. Now then, let's answer the big question. Should you play any of these games? Absolutely, especially Strikers, like come on. If this production didn't convince you, I don't know what will. In all seriousness, however, each and every one of them has something special, and I strongly recommend playing every one of them. Each have a great narrative, tone, style, and so many other things that make them stand out from each other. It doesn't matter what your first Persona game is, and I think that's what makes this series so fun to get into. Having to go through every title, sharing my thoughts, wearing this outfit, have all been brand new experiences for both me and new ideas we've never tackled before. If you ever want to see something like this again, be sure to press that red button. Here's my final ranking on each one, least to most favorite. Now if you'll excuse me, I will get to work on changing the hearts of those adults who underestimated us. And as always, this is Akari from Mintjoy Pictures.